Welcome to Myth Informed with your hosts, Brian and Dimitri. Today we have with us the esteemed podcaster, comedian, author, and renowned atheist, David Smalley. David hosts the popular Dogma Debate podcast, where he tackles current events, social politics, science, religion, you name it. David is an incredibly respected voice in the community, having interviewed the likes of Neil deGrasse Tyson, Richard Dawkins, Adam Carolla, many others. Shall we say more? David, thank you for injecting humor into the most controversial of topics, and welcome to Myth Informed.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, David. Great intro, Dimitri. I liked that. It seems like the state of atheism right now is a soldier somewhere like in 1916 looking across the lines in trench warfare.
Not everyone knows history.
No
That's
man's
World War I.
land, right? World War I and no man's land with like burnout trees and shell craters and it's one side versus the other and there's just nobody in no man's land. It seems fractured, divisive. Bombs are being hurled. That there doesn't seem to be any rules anymore. Like mustard gas is okay to use because their side's using it, right? Okay, so this is my dramatic World War I reference. Perhaps I've been playing too much Battlefield. That could be.
Listen, on Holocaust Remembrance Day, people don't even remember the Holocaust. You're asking them to remember World War I. Just
okay.
FYI.
I am asking too much. But yeah. Okay. But anyways, with my weird analogy, that I don't want you to comment on like the exact state of atheism now, but rather let's pull the flashback to when you get into this. When do you become an atheist first, and then you've always been an atheist, then you get in the movement, or do you have an epiphany and then you want to join? To bring us back to a time before World War I.
Yeah, I will. So it was. I mean, I had stopped calling myself a Christian when I was a teenager, because I actually read the Bible. I went through the whole thing and sort of talked with pastors and preachers, and literally reading the Bible is what deconverted me from Christianity. Things didn't make sense. I would ask one preacher a question, then I would go cross-reference that with another preacher, and they would disagree and tell me that preacher's sending me to hell. And I was just like, nobody knows what the hell is going on here. I'm like, I want to get to the bottom of this, right? So that's how that happened. And then
what year is this?
Oh God, that was like 1995, 96. And from then to about the mid 2000s, I was calling myself an atheist, but just not out loud. You know what I mean? I would just say I'm not a Christian. I was sort of afraid to identify. In fact, I was in a band in 2001. I was the lead singer of a band, and in our album cover, everybody wanted to thank God in the album, and I didn't push back, even though I thought every bit of it was bullshit. I still just was like, we thank God, and we thank this. Like a lot of people, just in denial, even though I knew I didn't believe it anymore. And then around 2006, I started writing a blog. And I called the blog dogmadebate.com because I wanted to have a sort of a place for people to come. This is going to sound funny, but a safe space for believers to come and present their arguments without being attacked. Because if I looked at Christian blogs, they were just demonizing atheists and saying terrible things and strawmanning our position. And if I looked at any sort of atheist blog, they were just like, oh, Jesus is Santa Claus for grown-ups. You're a bunch of idiots if you believe in this stuff. And I didn't see anything productive happening. So I started Dogma Debate as a way for me to post a blog and say, here's my view on this Bible verse. What do you guys think? And Christians flocked there to have their say. And anytime someone got rude or insulting, instead of me deleting the comment and blocking the person, I would reply and I would say, do you think this is an effective way of having your point made? Do you think this is going to make the person agree with you? And it caught on, and the blog itself just exploded. And so that was 2006. I started a YouTube channel and the blog. And then by 2008, I launched the first form of Dogma Debate. So that was about 10 years ago. Started writing 12 years ago. And then I started speaking, became the editor of American Atheist magazine in 2008 or 2009, published my book in 2010, and then sort of was in the running to become president of American Atheists along with Silverman. And then Silverman got the position. I pulled my name out of the hat and Silverman got the position. And then I relaunched the new version, the current version of Dogma Debate in 2012. So that's kind of my take on it. And I remember, it's interesting that you ask about that, because I remember what the message used to be. The message was very much, we understand that our position is not popular. We understand that it hurts you to hear our position, but we deserve a seat at the table. We deserve a right to say our piece and not be marginalized by the majority. And it's so odd that that's how this movement started. And then as people gained that power and gained that popularity, it's now, they are now the ones deciding who is allowed to speak. They're now taking the microphone away from others, or threatening violence or threatening fires or protests just for people speaking. And I feel like the people in the 60s, the Madalyn Murray O'Hairs, the Edwin Kagans, Frank Zendler, these guys, I think, if given the opportunity to address it, would be absolutely horrified at what we've done with this power.
I think your last tweet really speaks to this. And if you want to talk about the human cycle, I don't know if you came up with it, but
I did. Yeah, I did. I came up with this morning.
Absolutely hit the nail on the head. So because it's an original, I'm sure a bunch of people are going to copy it from now on. But if you want to, I don't know if you, I mean, I'm fine to read it, but it's your tweet. So
Go ahead.
So David writes, it's the human cycle. 1, notice lack of power. 2, vow to gain it. 3, identify the enemy. 4, find others who agree. 5, fight to obtain power. 6, abuse that power. 7, judge those in your group. 8, seek perfection. 9, attack your peers. 10, leave the group. And then start that process all over again. 11, notice the lack of power.
So we sort of seek perfection within our own group, even if we're successful. So we saw this with Ayn Rand. We see this in just about any movement. When people gather, we see it in Christianity. We see it in Islam. We see it in Judaism. People say, we're marginalized by X, and we pick our enemy. And then we go, oh, you're marginalized too. We should band together and fight against this marginalization. Yay, let's do it. So then we start the process. The gears start turning, and we start gaining influence. We start gaining power. And then people start going, yeah, I disagree with him. And you disagree with him, but why do you disagree with him? Well, I think he said this wrong. Oh, I agree with that, but I disagree with him for something else. You must be just as flawed as him. What a piece of shit you have become. I thought we were friends. And then you just split your group that you had. You split off, splinter off, and then you start realizing your group is now smaller, and you go, wait a minute. I have a lack of power, and now that group and that group are both marginalizing me. Let's find other people that feels marginalized by both of these groups. You could take that with the atheist community. You could take it with Christianity. Christianity has been around a long time, so they've had time to split into 30 or 40,000 denominations. And atheism has done it maybe 3 or 4 times already with Atheism Plus and now the social justice movement. And it just keeps splintering and splintering. And if you, as you are seeking perfection, and we've done this, we have purified our movement to death. There is nobody that meets the standards. Nobody that meets the standards of perfection. And even if there is a hint of it, if there is a thought of it, if there is a post of someone who thinks you might be this way, that just becomes the new meta. And that gets shared as a part of your personality. I can't tell you how many times I've run into my straw man online and been like, God, that guy is such a douche. But that's what they hate, and that's what they think I am. And then when I ask questions, here's the most heartbreaking part. When I ask questions and I go, can you tell me an actual view that I hold that you disagree with? This group of atheists, this group of skeptics makes fun of me for asking the question.
Yep.
Oh, he always does this. He always, name one view I hold. Shut up, you right-wing maniac. This is what I'm talking about. Could you imagine Madalyn Murray O'Hair when she's fighting court battles to stop prayer in school, and when she's saying we deserve a spot at the table, and when she's challenging things and asking for evidence and being a skeptic? Could you imagine if she were alive today, what she would think about those of the social justice weaponizing shame ilk within the atheist community?
It's different. like, I don't know if she's like the best example in the world, because unlike you, I think she's a little bit more, and dare I say, a cantankerous bitch. You know, like she's I think a troubled hero. She did a lot of good, but I mean, she's arguably a disagreeable woman. Right?
I don't think you are. I think she needed to be at the time.
Right. I'm not saying it's bad. She is a firebrand, right? I mean, that there's a thing called firebrand atheism, right? And then there's some that say everybody needs to be a firebrand because we have to make room for themselves. But I've always disagreed with that, because some people are good firebrands. Perhaps Madeline Murray, she was, right? You have to have that thing. But if you're not a firebrand atheist and you pretend you are, you're probably going to come off terribly. So if you're the friendly atheist, or like a Hammett Mata type, then do that, you know, be who you are. But, you know, I do think that Madeline Murray, she was a firebrand atheist that probably needs some of that at the time.
Well, and we should mention that's the founder of American Atheists, for those that may not be atheists who are listening to this, and watch the movie by Tommy O'Haver, who made a movie specifically. What is it? Most Hated Woman? The
Most Hated Woman, right. And that, although it's not completely historically perfect, I think it does a good job of capturing it, and I think casts her in a reasonably good light. Because, I mean, to say that she was Doris Day is just wrong.
So, you know, we come back, David, to the 2018, where we have a division in, let's call it, the secular community. But if we take your tweet and really what you believe at face value, no movement is immune from splintering, and it's inevitable. It's destiny. It will happen. It doesn't matter for what reason. So if that's the case, what do you then hold on to? If you're championing the logical, secular, you know, non-shaming corner, where is the inevitable splinter in your community?
I just try to hold on to humanism, and that's what blows me away by this. I was getting attacked, for example, of course, by people I don't know. I don't know who any of these people are, and people are just saying terrible things about me. That I'm, you know, of course, we're all Nazis, right? We're Nazis. We're
Nazi training camps.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, there's so many accusations that just get thrown around. And I just keep missing out on this concept of humanism, because I'm like, what happened to it? What happened to seeing someone you disagree with and then going, look, you probably believe that way because of bad information. Let me help you out of that bad mindset. Why do we just immediately want, when people say I'm done with atheism because of this stuff, I'm like, this is a human condition. This is not unique to atheists. This just proves that atheists are human beings, right? Unlike Mark Zuckerberg, which we know he's a robot.
I thought he was a lizard, but okay.
Yeah, well, he's a robot lizard, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he's. But I think it's like, it's heartbreaking, because as I try to say, well, guys, you know, maybe we should, you know, if someone like, say, Richard Spencer shares his ideology that, you know, whites are superior, or that there needs to be a white activist, blah, blah, blah. And I want to debate those ideas, because I think his ideas are flawed. Just inviting him to do a show immediately, like, flips a switch for so many on the extreme left, and they just decide that David Smalley is now a Nazi. Whenever the whole blow up happened with Mythcon last year, and the tweet was read, I wouldn't even rape you, and the people cheered, very close friends of mine, people who used to work for me, people who I deeply care about, started saying that the crowd cheered for rape. And I went, guys, I don't think anybody cheered for rape. I think they were cheering for defiance, because those folks who were protesting the conference were trying to weaponize shame, saying nobody should be allowed to talk because his views were offensive to this group of people. And then I was told that I was a rape apologist. I was defending sexual harassment. I was defending sexual assault. And then there were literally tweets that would go, David Smalley defended sexual harassment. Sexual harassment defense equals sexual assault defense. Sexual assault defense equals rape defense. Rape defense equals rape. David Smalley is a rapist. Like, these are tweets.
The leaps in the judgment that are made are astounding.
And I'm staring at these things going, what happened to compassion? What happened to humanism? On my show for the last 6 years, I will sit across from Christians who I completely disagree with, who will tell me that they are praying that my daughter gets taken from me so that she can be raised in a good Christian household. That's hurtful. That makes me angry.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't lash out at them. I will say, do you understand how that could be hurtful to me? And they will say, well, yes, I understand. But you know what? I tell you that because I love you and you need to change your ways in the name of Jesus. And so I end up in this conversation with them. But even though they're being hateful to me, I have compassion for that person. And why is that? Well, because I believe they honestly think that what they're saying is good. And if they believe what they're saying is good, then I want to fix that. I'm not going to force them to change their mind by being nasty. That just doesn't work. Nobody has been like, here's my beliefs for the last 12 years. And you go, yeah, but you're an asshole and an idiot. And they go, now that you mention it, I'm wrong. Doesn't happen, right? Not even rarely. Like, it just doesn't happen. So someone has to come to their own their own change of heart, right? And think about it. All of us at some point have had an idea, and now we're on a different side, whatever that may be. How did we change? Did we change it because we got insulted and beaten down? No, we put walls up around those people and push those people out of our lives. So how do we do that? We open up conversation. We explain why we think their views are wrong, and we attack bad ideas with better ideas in an open sphere and a handshake and a hug and a beer. That's how you resolve things, right?
But David,
so many in our own camp think that it's virtuous to go on the attack and not just disagree with people, but actively try to destroy them. And it's mind-numbing to me that they think that's somehow progressive.
Do you think it's a symptom of social media, of new age culture, where you can have not your 15 minutes of fame, but your 30 seconds of fame by having an incredibly damning tweet and a damning Facebook post that allow you to virtue signal so much you'll get, I don't know, what's a pleb amount of likes that is 10 likes. That's for a regular person is an unbelievable amount. If that's the case, then maybe they feel like they've done something. And, we're in a very transient society. So if you do something like that, you all of a sudden feel like you've accomplished something. Is that a symptom of what's happening? Maybe they don't actually believe that you're a shitty person, but they're doing it out of selfish reasons.
Yeah. So I had Jamie Kilstein on my show, and I usually try to let my guest sort of help me decide what the title is going to be. Like, whenever it says, Christian versus David Smalley or pastor versus Dave, that pastor had a say in what I was going to call that show usually. And whenever I asked Jamie, we talked back and forth, and he suggested former SJW speaks out or tells all or something along those lines. He wanted to be referred to as a former social justice warrior. And in that episode with Jamie, it was eye-opening, because hearing him, because he used to be that guy. He was on the attack. He was with the guys who wake up in the morning and just go, who are we going after today? And hearing him sit here in this studio and talk about that was really eye-opening, because I was asking, like, I'm still naive, and I go, but here's a link to the story, guys. Why is nobody listening? And they're just like, shut up, you idiot, you jack. And I'm like, but here are the facts. They're like, oh, look at him with his facts. And I'm like, what is going? This is the most idiotic online bullying from people who were supposed to be against online bullying, and they're just completely ignoring the data. And I'm stunned by it. Like, it almost feels like a Truman Show type thing. I'm like, how is this reality? And what he said was, he said he would just wake up in the morning, he would look at Twitter, and he's like, who are we going after today? And then he would see the headline, and he would be like, oh well. He would see an attack, and he would go, oh, I'm funnier than that. I can roast the guy better than my friend did. And so he would retweet it and then make his own nasty thing. And I said, would you actually read the article about the person? And he would go, oh, not normally. And I'm like, that's interesting. It's very much about, I bet I can get more retweets or more likes on my insult than you can. And it is so dehumanizing to the person actually going through that, which is why I try to send a private message to the person and go, hey, I know that you've said some nasty things about me that were hurtful, but I understand you probably believe that because of wrong information. Tell me a view that I have that you disagree with, and we'll talk about it. Because I looked at your Facebook page, and I don't disagree with any of your posts. You're talking about Trump. You're talking about healthcare. You're talking about we need more gun control. I'm on board for most of that. We seem like we could be allies. What's a right-wing view that you believe I hold? How do you think I'm alt-right? I'm curious. Those who respond and engage me end up understanding where I'm coming from and stop the hate. The rest of them will literally screenshot my private message, never respond, post that as their new post, and then go off calling me a racist and a rapist and a sexual predator and whatever they decide that I am that day.
No, we had the same thing happen, especially when we were inviting people to Mythcon. People would screenshot that shit. And
yeah, private emails saying, hey, we want a person to really steel man and defend intersectionality. We think you're good at it. Will you do it?
They would laugh at it.
Yeah, look at the Nazis.
Here's what happened. Here's what happened to me recently. Someone did that. This guy was just saying terrible things about me. So I could have ignored it, but I sent him a message because I respect him as a human being, and I think he has wrong information. So I reach out and I go, hey, tell me a view you disagree with. He posted that on Facebook, and then the first comment, and I want to read the comment to you, actually. I read it at the beginning of one of my shows recently, but the reason I picked this one is because it's a perfect example of the hundreds of comments that have flowed through. Here's what the person says. Her name is Mia, and she's replying to the comment. Here's what she says. She's sort of answering, do I have a view that you disagree with? Here's what she says. She says, yes, you believe that you have things to say that are relevant to the world, that you contribute to society, and that you aren't a complete waste of skin and organs that could be better used as purposed for transplants. You believe that the air you breathe couldn't be better used by dengue fever transmitting mosquitoes and rabid feral cats. Clearly, I and many others disagree.
That would qualify
one of the
as
most hateful things I've ever heard in my life.
It's definitely salt, right? That's very
me?
Salty.
That's acid.
Yes, I know it is. It is.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. And then I would post something like the Human Cycle, or I posted something called the Outrage Brigade Manifesto, where I kind of went step by step again. Like here's how I'll treat you. If you want to pull up my Facebook page, you'll find that one, and maybe we can read that one on air too. The Outrage Brigade Manifesto caused a lot of other people to be outraged. Shocker. But the funny thing about it is, this is just one comment out of hundreds I've received that are incredibly hateful and accusatory and nasty about me and my character. And again, no real thing that I actually believe. It's not like David believes universal health care and I think that's bad for the environment or bad for the economy, or David believes this and he's wrong about that. None of that. Nothing of real substance. Just an attack on who I am, and just a nasty, just an online bullying, nasty thing to say. And then other people on that same thread were going, David just can't take constructive criticism.
Well, this is
saying nasty. Yeah, they're saying David can't. No one's really saying anything nasty about David. He's lying. And then someone would comment, yeah, he's a dishonest narcissist. Yeah, what a piece of shit. And I'm like, meanwhile, this all started because I posted that I need more Patreon support on my show, or I won't be able to do it anymore. I didn't.
Which, by the way, so we did want to move into that. So I'm glad that
vulnerability, I think, is what you showed there, right?
And I knew that those who already hated me, the straw man version of me, by the way, because if any of these people would reach out directly and say, here's a view that you hold that I disagree with, we could talk about that. And guess what? Even if I was more center, or they believe I've moved to the right and I think they're extreme left, I'm sure we would agree on 90% of the politics, and we would have a few things we disagree on, which should be okay. I don't know why that would even justify vitriolic hate. But at the end of the day, I did. I showed vulnerability, and these folks, like Mia and like many others, saw that as just like a drop of blood in the ocean, and they started swarming. And a lot of people who do support me aren't coming there because they don't want the attack to come to them. I'm getting private emails, private messages, text messages, and people have been signing up on Patreon. There's over 200 people who have gone to Patreon to support it, but there are, 15, 40, 80 people who are liking these hateful comments about me. So at the end of the day, I know that there's a supportive base that are signing up and find a lot of value in my show. But it's sad to see people who call themselves humanists respond this way. It's
David, I want to back into this particular plea, the post that you made. I think it was a couple of maybe yesterday, but I want to back into it through your story of how you got into podcasting. You kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but I mean, there were some people that were saying, "Oh, he sold out. He moved out west." So for those that know nothing about you, you're just, you're a beautiful face on their screen with just piercing blue eyes. For people who just see that, can you take us and them through how you started in the business, where you were in the country, how your views evolved, and end up with this post that you made, whatever it was, yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, I can surprisingly do that relatively quickly. So when I talked about having the Dogma Debate blog, that was 2006, 2008, launched 2010, and then Dogma Debate 2012 in its current format. The show gained a lot of popularity over the years, and in 2014, I went full-time. I had enough financial support through providing extra content, behind the scenes content, to support it full time. A new employer, I was making a lateral move to a new employer at the time, and they Googled me, found out who I was, and withdrew their offer. And so rather than go into that rat race and scramble trying to find a job, which, by the way, looking for a job is by far the hardest job you will ever have. It's terrifying. And you reek of desperation while also trying not to be desperate. It's a terrible situation to be in.
Where were you at geographically at this time?
I was in Texas, and I had a six-figure.
No surprise.
Yeah, I had a six-figure income. I was in Texas. I was an IT guy doing mobile security, and they Googled me and said, your values are not in line with the values of the company, and we're withdrawing our offer.
Goddamn atheist.
Our offer, yeah, and that's what it was. I know that's what it was, and so I just went head first into Dogma Debate and was like, you know what? There's a little bit of money in this account. If we grow the membership to this level, I think we can survive on it. And so I went head first, and I was right. We made it. We got a lot of positive feedback from people who really love the show. A lot of people saying, you changed my life. I was on the brink of suicide. Then I found your show, or I haven't talked to my mom in 12 years. And I heard you talk with a believer who said something she said, and you responded respectfully. And now I've repaired that relationship. Then we started doing all of the charity events. We've raised over $400,000 for charities in 4 years with our 24-hour broadcast and other charities. And I just wanted to do the most good in the world. And so through all of that, my downloads reached, the level where it was taken notice by, or Podcast One took notice and offered me a deal to be in LA and do the show. Now, when I say offered me a deal, a lot of people think that comes with a signing bonus or a bunch of money. And many people have said I'm a millionaire. There are net worth websites that have my net worth anywhere from 3 million to 250 million. And every bit of every bit of it is absolutely false.
Can I hang on the yacht?
Yeah, exactly. So what actually happened was Podcast One offered me a deal, and they were like, if you want to be in LA, you can. We're not paying for any transfer stuff. We're not paying any upfront money. We'll just sell advertising during your show and split revenue. And so that's what they do. It's not, there was no big upfront money.
But they didn't require you to move to LA, or did they?
They did not require me to move to LA. However, they did say a lot of the shows we can put you on do not do interviews over Skype or over the phone. Okay. So if you're here, not only will you have access to bigger shows to promote your show, to get your message out, but you'll have access to our studios whenever you want to have someone on your show. So if I wanted, Jay Moore from Saturday Night Live, or Adam Carolla, or Joe Rogan, or any of these guys who'd be willing to do the show, I mean, or are they going to call in? Are they going to Skype me in Garland, Texas? You know what I mean? There's a certain level of celebrity that just won't bother with that unless they're promoting a specific event or a book or something, And so I knew that I needed to be here to give this its best shot. And if I'm going head first into it, why not do it all the way? If I'm going to half-ass it and just upload a show from Texas and not really try to get the word out or get higher level celebrities on the show, I might as well hang it up, right? So I made the move on my own. I sold my house in Texas, and that revenue funded everything I was doing. And that's how I'm all in. All the equity that I had in my house supported me and my family for a year, paid production fees, paid everything I needed to pay to live here as we were trying to ramp up the revenue, the ad revenue from Podcast One. And then the plan was, by the time I get to that point and that money runs out, I will have reached a level of support with Patreon that it'll be comfortable and I'll be fine. And we got close, and then the Patreon just didn't take off. And so I was just at this point of like, I'm struggling to do this. I feel like, people are like, oh, I get the show for free. Why would I pay for it? It doesn't matter. And then I thought, well, what if I only did it for Patreon, for patrons, and made it a paid show only? Well, then there's a lot of people who are struggling, a lot of people who are students, a lot of people who feel alone in their households and don't have the money to support the show. And I think they need the content. And I hear from them. I get the hundreds of emails. And so I would feel bad making it pay only. So I had this struggle of, should I struggle financially? And it went from struggling financially to almost having to quit the entire show, because I'm like, look, I can go make 6 figures or even a high 5 figures hosting, doing drive time radio in LA. I could move back to Dallas and jump on and be a news guy and make, 80 grand a year. I have the chops for radio. If I left the movement, if I left activism, I could survive better. And so I
think you'd have to take up religion again, because a Channel 4 would not hire a David Smalley.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I would definitely have to stop talking about it online. That's for sure. And I wouldn't, of course, I wouldn't fake it, but I wouldn't be able to talk about it anymore. And that's where my passions, that's where my heart is going after dogma in general. And so I was watching the movie Roman J. Esquire with Denzel Washington. And he said something in the movie that really resonated with me. And what he said was, he plays a defense attorney for activists. And he said, I'm tired of doing the impossible for the ungrateful. And I was just like,
can you say that one more time?
He said, I'm tired of doing the impossible for the ungrateful.
Okay.
And that just resonated with me. And I thought, you know what? There are a lot of people who are grateful for my show. At the time, there were about 500 people on Patreon supporting the show. But the show was getting anywhere from 88,000 to 160,000 downloads, but only 500 people were supporting the show financially. And I'm like, if that percentage is what finds value in it, I need to stop doing it. And so I just made the post and said, look, if I can't find at least, 1,400 people to support the show, then I just need to hang it up. It's a statement of my character. It's not a threat to anyone. It's not saying you better support my show. You don't owe it to me. Nobody owes it to me. If my product's not there, it needs to go away. It's the same thing with a bag of chips. If it tastes like shit, stop buying it. They'll stop making it. That's how capitalism works. So at the end of the day, if my show's not worth paying for it, I just need to stop. And before I did that, before I just stopped the show, I wanted to give them an opportunity to save the show. So I did the post and said, look, I want to be able to pay my producer a fair wage. I want to be able to pay my graphic designer. I want to be able to pay my IT guy, the people who keep the websites running, the server fees to keep our emails running. There's a lot of expenses that goes into it. And I want to be able to pay these folks. And, when they have their license needs to be renewed, or their tag goes out, or a headlight goes out in their car, I don't want people struggling while they work for me, right? I want them to be able to live comfortably and come to work every day and produce amazing content. Well, they're coming to work every day. They're producing amazing content, and they're not getting paid what they're worth. And that's not fair to them. So I either need to let them go, move on to bigger and better things so they can afford it, so they can afford to live comfortably, or I need to get the finances right within my company. So that's what I posted about. And that level of vulnerability brought on an onslaught of attacks that I'm a piece of shit.
Well, you're trying to be nice about it, but I don't see this as any more controversial than the alert that I will sometimes get on Wikipedia that says, please donate
$3
to Wikipedia. If everybody donated $3 today, we'd be good for the next 5 years, or whatever they say.
Or NPR does their own, money raising, whatever, call-a-thon.
Lots of websites, used to say, hey, this is like some comedy website or whatever. We're getting an enormous amount of traffic. I love doing this, but it's costing me so much to host my server that I'm either going to have to make it a pay site or please donate.
Right.
And otherwise I'm going to have to not do this. Like, yeah, this just makes sense. You can't.
Well,
so to take that and twist it, it seems like a low blow.
Well, but we should talk about so you made this post, right? It's on Facebook, wherever it is. And there was a whole bunch of talk under it. A lot of people saying, hey, Smalley, we love you. Or some people saying, you know what, I'm in a bad financial situation, but I really want to support you, so I will. And a subset of people who just took a dump onto that post. Just a verbal absolute diarrhea of telling you what kind of shitty person you were, the fact that you sold out to right-wing, whatever the hell. I mean, you obviously read them more than I did. I skimmed and I got the message. But there was that sense of, he sold out, he moved to LA, he tried to be a glamour star, whatever it is, and he tried to suck up to the alt-right, all of which are incredibly, straw man, just unbelievably false claims. So it's nice that we got to have you here and talk to some of these things that were said. But yeah, I don't know if I were in that position as you. I mean, it must be tough to be able to take that and individually message these people who are, spewing hate to get to the source of truth.
Right.
Yeah, it's not easy because there are also, other things going on in my personal life, just like we all have stuff going on in our personal lives that we have to deal with. And on top of the personal stuff, this onslaught of attacks is happening. And for me, it was never really about trying to solicit a donation. I want to provide content that's valuable. And if I'm not, then I need to move on. Now, the good news is some of the stuff that was hateful, believe it or not, they did have some valuable feedback in there. So as an example, when I look at my downloads, just my sheer downloads, I'll see like, if I have a Christian on, it spikes through the roof. And if I have a bunch of atheists sitting around talking about a news story and playing Donald Trump audio, I have about half the downloads I normally would. So I took that to mean people don't like those shows as much. So I took all of that content, right? Just us atheists hanging out or having a comedian on. And I created this whole new project called the Smalley Effect to separate it and made Dogma Debate just about debates.
Mm-hmm.
And then people, because I thought that's what they wanted. And the feedback now is, no, it's monotonous. We like the other conversations. We like the break-in and we like the comedians. And I'm like, okay, so this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, by the way. What we're going to be doing is we're going to sunset the Smalley Effect and bring all of that stuff back in to Dogma. And it's all going to be about Dogma, period. So sometimes we will have Dogma debates, and sometimes it'll just be us hanging out talking, and we'll try to do that on every episode. But I'm going to bring back that co-host banter, that the funny segments we used to have, the characters we played, and I did listen to the feedback, even though some of it was pretty hateful. But I went back and listened to some of my old shows, some of the stuff from 2012, 2014, 2015. And it really inspired me to reevaluate and relaunch the show as it is. So for anyone out there listening who loved the old show and doesn't really like the way it is now, this is going to be an opportunity for you to come back to Dogma Debate.
And when you mean like dogma, obviously religious dogma is the first thing that comes to my mind. But are you going to mix in as like it appears, ideological dogma. Because you can be dogmatic about things that are not religion and be extraordinarily intolerant. Does that qualify under like the dogma debate?
Absolutely. And that's exactly the point. And I think what I'm going to do is focus on the show as dogma on its own. And within dogma, we will have dogma debates, we will have discussions, we will have segments and audio, but we're just going to focus on the word dogma as the show title and still have dogma debates within dogma. But yes, sometimes it'll be, you know, people on the far right, people, these Republicans who are trying to strip rights away from the LGBT community and the transgender folks, with Donald Trump trying to block trans people from serving in the military. People who hold those views, I want to debate them. And at the same time, people who hold the view that, you know, if Milo is going to speak somewhere, they should go set fires. I would like to speak to them as well, because that's equally as dogmatic.
Yeah. And also even the humanism means this. And I have an exact definition. And if you veer outside of this, you're not a humanist. To me, that is dogmatic humanism.
Well, partly, I would slightly disagree with you. I would think that there is a basic definition to humanism, meaning these people who have said these terrible things to me and just gone on the attack and told me that I'm a waste of skin, or that I'm, you know, whatever they've said, that I'm a terrible person, that I'm a shitbag. I mean, you name it. And then they will literally a couple of comments later say, David Smalley's not a humanist, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, we have dictionaries, and the way you're acting, the way you're responding is not what a humanist would do. There was one thing, I'm going to tell you a quick story, guys. This is super quick, I promise. I saw a tweet from Senator Harris here in California, and she said something about everyone being entitled to benefits, so that no one should have to work when they're 75. And my initial tweet was, well, I don't know, if they, you know, beat their kids and with this horrible person and, you know, put all their retirement funds up their nose, I don't know that we should have to support them. And then I thought about it, and I was like, I tweeted that out, and then I was like, well, even though I really thought about it over the next 20 minutes, and I was driving to my own comedy show, by the way, as I was thinking this through, my own comedy show in Hollywood. And I pulled over to a gas station, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to set this right. I tweeted her tweet. I retweeted it again, and I said, I apologize for my previous tweet. I didn't take time to think about it. Now that I've given it some thought, even if someone causes their own suffering by snorting all of their retirement money or doing these terrible things, I don't think my humanism would allow me to let someone just suffer and starve to death. So maybe there is some level of safety net that we need. I did say I apologize for my previous tweet, and I was like, maybe there should be something there. The people who are being hateful to me online are ignoring the apology portion, taking the screenshot of the original thing that I said, and relaunching that, re-signal boosting that, saying, look at what this piece of shit said. He wants old people to die. He hates old people. And there are entire threads that I want to take benefits from the elderly, and I'm a shit person for it. And then whenever I went to one of the threads, I can't keep up with it. I mean, I've responded to maybe 10% of what's out there. When I would take my own screenshot, because I have shit to do, but I would take the time to say the facts are important to me. I would post a screenshot of my apology and correction, and I would say, guys, this is what I said literally 18 minutes after that tweet. I apologized and corrected it. I agree with you. I misspoke. The first comment, fuck your apology. You didn't mean it. And that lets me know it is pointless to talk with some of these people. They're not interested in it. And the first post about me being a shit person with that screenshot, 80, 90 likes, dogpiling, what a shitbag. My comment down at the bottom, crickets. Nope, they just ignore it. So
I think your comment about that guy that wakes up in the morning and he goes, who can we shit on today? It perfectly summarizes exactly who we're dealing with. And then that begs the question, I mean, is atheism, is humanism a dead meme? Is that the case? Is that what we're dealing with today?
No, I don't think humanism. I don't think humanism is a dead meme. I don't. I think that it's being abused right now. Just like I don't think feminism is dead. I think it's being abused.
So I've had this this argument not with many people, and I do want to get your take on this, because my view is that feminism in this case has been poisoned so much by your third waivers, for example, that it's not something you can possibly ever reclaim. And fighting that battle is, and not that I don't believe in feminism, but if you just simply rebrand it into something like egalitarianism, which doesn't carry the type of baggage that feminism does, why not do that? That's an easier fight of it than trying to reclaim the toxicity of feminism.
That sounds to me that sounds to me like people who say, I don't want to use the word atheist because of all the negative baggage that comes with it. So call me non-believer, call me humanist, call me agnostic.
Well, there are a lot of people that use secular so that not to have that connotation. But, you know, if you want to be a firebrand, I guess you could say, I'm an atheist.
No, I can not be a firebrand and still adequately state I'm an atheist, and that's still an accurate depiction of my worldview. So I don't want us to give up on these basic ideas of humanism, feminism, and atheism because other people are ruining what it means to us. So I'm of the argument, I'm of the mindset that we need to fight to keep the words in reality and not let the insane radicals take over what the words mean. Now, it's possible that the words change meaning, right? Because words don't always have solid definitions. They have meanings and usages, right? And if a word is now used over the top to mean third wave feminism and is this entire, we have to bracket that with intersectionality, and we bracket that where, you know, all men are pedophiles and pieces of shit and every man is a rapist. And well, okay, now your worldview has led to absurdity. And if that is what is embraced by feminism, that's sad to me, because I know people who are feminists. I'm a feminist. I look at that and go, that doesn't represent my views. And so at some point, we're going to have to go, yeah, I can't call myself that anymore, right? I don't think we're there yet. I think there's still time for reasonable heads to prevail and to say, guys, this is what feminism means. It means egalitarianism. It means that men are and women are equal. We don't have to give up on it. I'm not going to stop calling myself atheist because atheist groups are now abusing social justice to control the speech of others.
But who has ruined atheism previously? I mean, can you name, you know, what's the atheist meme that made you embarrassed to be an atheist? Because I can give you 5,000 feminist memes that have ruined the word feminism, but I can't think of one. That's why I don't think that they're talking about, they're almost like apples and oranges.
Oh, but here's the problem with what you just said. For every person, for every meme that you show me that you say has ruined feminism, I can show you a feminist who disagrees with that meme.
Probably, you're right.
Well, okay, then it shouldn't ruin it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with David on this one. To me, if I hear the word or hear somebody say, I'm a feminist, I don't immediately know what that means. That's not enough information. I'm like, okay, like what does feminism mean to you? If they say, well, you know, I'm of the Andrea Dworkin style and I believe all penetrative sex is rape. Okay. It's probably not the kind of feminism that I'm going to have a lot of problems with that. But if they say, hey, I'm for egalitarian, for equal opportunity, I don't particularly like buy into gender roles. Yeah, I'm with you. Then I guess I qualify as a feminist under that definition. So, I mean, even third wave feminists is an attempt to segregate, it's attempt to nuance the definition a little bit. And I guess too, to say it's beyond reform, that does kind of crap on the Irshad Manjis of the world and the Azra Nomanis of the world that are trying to reform Islam. You know, that no, it's this, we can do it. So
no, you have a very you know, Brian, one of your key phrases that you always use is judge slowly. Believe me, Brian's coined it. It's his thing. No one can take ownership of it.
I like it.
It's fantastic, David. You should steal it. So I just don't think that a lot of people do that. They hear a trigger word and they immediately jump. And I'm guilty of this too.
We all are.
And so, you know, I've been of the opinion, you know, take the easier road in this case. Take a word that doesn't have a lot of movement in the zeitgeist and claim it as your own, and make sure that people can't steal it. And that's where I use the egalitarian term. A lot of Americans don't even know what the fuck that means because they don't read. And so people should read, and we should popularize something like that. But I get your point in reclaiming a word and doing the road less traveled, making it a battle to reclaim feminism. You know, you may have a point there.
I've had Catholics in my studio that'll say, yeah, I don't believe Jesus died for my sins. He died because he was persecuted by the Romans and tried to take over. Like, well, I'm pretty sure you can't say you're Catholic anymore. Like, no, and they're like, no, that's personal to me. So you have to call me Catholic if I want to identify as Catholic. And I'm like, okay, well then in that case, I'm an atheist, but I totally believe in God. Are you cool with that? No, nobody's cool with that. You know, there are lines. And so if you say I'm a feminist, but all sexual penetration is rape, that's not equality among the genders, right? So that's not what feminism is. That's an over-the-top abuse of what that means. It's a bastardization of that term.
Right. And I don't think I've met a ton of feminists that have ever said, I wholly subscribe to Dworkin when she said that.
Right.
I really haven't seen that.
And keep in mind that sometimes people will share a view with you, because I bet you she still believes men and women should be treated equally in the workplace, and men and women should have equal pay, right? And that there should be equal opportunity among genders and sexes. That's the core of feminism, right?
Yeah, but there are people that go beyond that. Even a person like that might say, no, men have had their place in the sun. It's time to make them a second-class citizen. There's a group of feminists that believe that, and that's who.
Listen to what you just
said. They don't want equity. They want to reverse. They want to reverse.
God, by definition, that is no longer feminism.
But they don't. They can say, but don't tell me what that is. Like, don't tell me what Catholicism is. You know, I believe in gay marriage. Don't call me not a Catholic. I've had someone say that.
And you could redefine, I mean, I could define, I shouldn't say people could define feminism as female superiority versus you can't mess with the term. Egalitarianism literally means equality of the sexes.
Well, what I'm getting at is sometimes people will say, I'm an atheist, but I believe in an afterlife. I can talk to my dead loved ones. I'm a psychic. They have all these other spiritual beliefs. That doesn't ruin atheism for me. We can both still agree that there's not enough evidence for a God, and that person can still believe they can control rainbows and move the stars and shit. And they can on their own just lump that in and say, yeah, the atheism to me means there is no God, but I am God, and I can control shit. And I can go, look, we're both atheists, and all that other stuff you added to it does not represent anything having to do with atheism. So I think these feminists are feminists at their core, but they've added a whole bunch of stuff that does not fit into the core of the egalitarian view of feminism.
Right. Yeah, I think that they're doing, and there's certain things there's getting to the truth, and then there's strategy. And we would often talk about this as politics for many years. That is that politician telling me the truth? Are they saying this to get that 2% political edge they need in order to control like this legislative branch? Yeah. Like, you know, this happens all the time. Now I think we're doing this in like the socio-cultural realm where we're becoming extremely tribal. So I don't want to listen to you, David. I'm going to find out, like, I'm going to search long and hard and find the tweet where I think you messed up, or where some people might think you messed up, even though 99% seem good. I'm going to find that one, and maybe 2 or 3. Now I'm going to say it's a pattern. And this is going to be my strategy.
Or
this is not a search
figure out your labels
for the truth, right? This is basic tribalism, and it goes absolutely both ways. I mean, you can tell a conservative that he's like, you know, yeah, I'm against. I know we can't get. We need 90 round clips for my AR-15 because you know what? Those guys want to take my guns. They ain't going to stop at my huge clip rifle. They want to take my guns. I don't trust them. Screw them. They're the enemy. instead of nuance, when that guy doesn't even own an AR-15. But he's absolutely convinced that these people are the enemy. They don't want rational gun control. And I think that's exactly what's going on, that nobody is examining this. We're so tribal by nature. And that's why I say judge slowly is really, it's a point of principle that you try to adhere to, because absolutely you feel the want to go to tribal and you have to resist that.
Well, and we have a good, actually there's a comment that came in that really resonates with us. It's on paper, North Korea is the People's Republic. The definitions mean nothing if the acts don't match it. So a great point that was, that was made in the comments.
That is a good point. That is a good point. And I just, that's the struggle. If the actions aren't matching it, then the actions don't speak to the definition. And it's an abuse of what's going on. So then there's that struggle between the traditional definition of what it was supposed to be and how it's being abused. And it comes down to, I guess, the majority. Are the majority of feminists saying this? Maybe right now, or maybe they're not. Maybe it's just the loud squeaky wheels, right? So we don't really know. But it's interesting, though, back to Brian's point, how whenever you're talking about people not enjoying my content or not liking me, God, how many times have you left a restaurant and thought, I'm never going back there? Right? A lot. You've left and been like, that's terrible food. Or
the Olive Garden, right?
Well, I'm saying, did you just not go back? Or did you stand out in front of their door and go, they're killing babies in there. They're all run by Nazis. They're raping waitresses. It's absolutely terrible. At any and all costs, stop people from going in there.
David, you know there's Yelp now, right?
Yeah.
He's still talking about the Olive Garden.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. But look at Yelp. I mean, just, I heard it. They commented on like, yeah, this is people letting out their emotions. It's actually a good analogy. I see it.
But the Yelp thing is actually a really good point, because there have been businesses that have South Park did a thing on this where I'm a Yelp reviewer and I'm gonna blackmail you into giving me free food. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you a 1-star review. That's essentially what some of these far kind of leftists have done. It's almost a mafia mentality of sorts, where they'll go, oh, you don't want to subscribe to this view? I will shit on your content so bad. I will make it toxic.
But imagine, look, having a bad experience at a restaurant and going to Yelp and saying they treated me like shit is fine. That's what you should do, right? The issue is you then follow their Facebook page, and every time they post, hey guys, we have a new menu item, probably going to be cockroaches in it, you piece of shit rapist. I mean, at some point you have to evaluate someone's mental stability that's willing to continue to follow something that they absolutely despise. And every time that person posts something, just be like, horse shit, that's terrible. And then just make some sort of blatant statement and accusation. Because at some point, there's going to be a defamation suit against you. At some point, you are crossing the line of having your opinion to then spreading false information to cause harm to people.
Right. No, I think that's exactly right. Because at some point where, because there's always going to be the crazy guy. But at what point does your attack, your strategy become defamation? And I guess that's a good segue to, some of the things that happened in the atheist movement with tribalism, I've been seeing this.
And hypocrisy.
Well, you're right. Again, we're humans. The atheist movement will be flawed. No doubt. It's not going to, it's going to be much like the religious movement.
The problem with the atheist movement is it's got people in it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Speaking of people.
Right. Yeah, this hammer was made by a person. So therefore, right, it's going to be flawed in some way. But as far as we're getting to like what's defamation, what's not. And, Lawrence Krauss comes to mind as far as like allegations. And I've seen BuzzFeed kind of like being, that seems to be pro-atheism. They seem to like atheism, but they tend not to like new atheism or organized atheism or the atheism movement. So they've been critiques.
Or white male atheists.
Right. And now some of it, like, I just be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't agree with this. They're kind of saying it's misogynist, that there's too many white male speakers. Okay, whatever. That's an opinion. But then the Lawrence Krauss thing, then you come to, wow, this is really getting at the core of somebody's character, that he's a serial predator, a la Harvey Weinstein.
Sexual assault allegations.
Correct. Right. And And you know, when I see these kind of things, again, you have to judge slowly. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't know, you're not there, you know, well, what can you see? But you wait for things to come out. Lawrence Krauss put out a statement, I think 7 or 8 days later. And I'm like, okay, but still, it wasn't, I didn't feel like I really had a decent amount of clarity on the issue until Christina Rad had made her video, which I think it was always, I've always thought she was a great YouTuber, has always been very nuanced and really wanting to get to the truth. And I felt like I kind of do get this situation. Yeah, there's nuance to both sides. There's some credibility to the BuzzFeed article that, yeah, he's doing some things that are inappropriate. Is the punishment excommunication completely, or is it an apology? Is this something he can get across? Because she said he's not a predator. He's made mistakes, but there's a difference between somebody who's made mistakes and a predator. And I think that's the kind of nuance we need. David Silverman has just come out. There's the BuzzFeed article very, very recently about him. And
very recently, like 6 hours ago.
Yes, like 6 hours ago. And again, we have to judge slowly on this. I mean, if I want to follow the instincts, David Silverman has been incredibly critical of Mythcon. He has, you know, he tweeted out when Sargon, you know, at the Mythcon, which is a 12-hour event, he took a 1-minute clip, posted it online of Sargon saying, "Yup," to "I wouldn't even rape you," and then the crowd cheers, and he says, "My bile bubbled and my blood boiled."
Well, and
just threw us under the bus for 1 minute,
and not to mention throwing Lawrence Krauss immediately under the bus before hearing any facts. So we started this talking about hypocrisy. You know, David, you'd mentioned earlier in this podcast, you were in the running to be, you know, president of American Atheism. And now we get this fallout with the current president of American Atheism. So have you had any time to digest this and really, you know, put this in perspective?
It is all brand new. So first of all, when Dave was on my show last, he made some comments about being afraid of being judged, for, like, I think he said something along the lines of, like, you know, for thoughts and fantasies or sexual kinks or whatever. And he's like, you just need to speak up and be open with your partner about that, and things can get better. And he talked about really struggling with depression and going through, you know, just really doubting his self-worth and things like that. So, you know, if Dave Silverman has victimized anyone, if he's victimized people, which those are the allegations, and now he's been officially terminated from the position for doing that, that leads me to believe there was something substantiated in the investigation. And so first and foremost, I hope that if he does have victims and those allegations are true, that those victims do find a way to heal and are not, you know, taunted or traumatized by this issue. It's sad that if he did that he abused his power and did those things. It's heartbreaking that someone would actually do that. And then, you know, the humanist in me still hopes Dave gets help if this is his problem. I know he has struggled. He talked on my show about struggling with depression. So I'm not saying anything, you know, in the public that he hasn't said in the public. And so I just know how important mental health is. I know how stressful it is to be a leader in this community and how people can go on the attack. So as much as I want his victims to be healed and move forward, I hope Dave is able to heal as well and move forward and not victimize people in the future. I know he's been a critic of yours. He's been a critic of mine, unfairly sometimes, I know. But at the end of the day, I really want people to get better, to heal, to overcome what they've experienced. And I don't know where this is going to take us, but, you know, it's shocking. Yeah. This keeps coming out over and over and over about people in the movement. It's heartbreaking.
Right. And this is where I think the tribalism that I think is in our human nature is really, really bad, because Although I can say, wow, you know, there's been abuses by what, I don't know, some people might say radical feminists or somebody, they're straw manning the position. But again, is there a kernel of truth in this case? You know, that on the surface, that the Silverman allegations do seem more credible. And
well, here's the thing.
The thing is, again, I still have to judge slowly. And if someone wants to say, Brian, what is your position on this? What ought to be done? I'm going to refuse to answer that, at least, especially right away. And because I just can't be pinned down.
Of all people, we would have so much baggage in this case because of how critical he has been about us being supportive of the alt-right and in his you know, vast social justice positions. But this is what it comes down to.
Our tribalism would want to immediately leap to a condemnation.
It's so easy to gloat and say, you know, you deserve whatever, but that's the wrong tack to take here. You know, everyone has to judge slowly and you have to give the accuser, you know, the ability to defend themselves. Just like Lawrence Krauss, David has the exact same you know, avenue here.
Right. But we also have to then consider too the women making the allegations. And when I was reading those, I was tempted to put myself in their position. And I feel you. Like I get that. That's not good. Having that person in personal leadership, I can see the outrage. Yeah, absolutely.
So on the Lawrence Krauss thing, Lawrence and I have worked together on several projects, and a couple of years ago, I think maybe 3 years ago, he came out to my studio and recorded an audiobook. And while he was there, a few people who were close to me wanted to go hang out with him. So I asked him if he would like go to a dinner or something and just hang out with everybody. And he said he would do one dinner while he was in town. And so he did. We got everybody together for one thing, everybody who, you know, wanted to meet him. And we all got together. And we finished up dinner, and he says at the table, he goes, "Hey, does anybody want to go dancing? Is there any good dancing clubs around here?" And I was just to his right, and I went, "No, I don't want to." And we went around the table, and everybody went, "Nope, nope, 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 nope," all the way around the table. Nobody wanted to go dancing. And I was like, "Looks like I'm taking you back to your hotel." And one woman spoke up and said, "I'd love to go." And I was like, "Okay, well, there you go." And so we got up, we went outside, we all took pictures. And I looked at her and I said, "Hey, I'm his ride back to the hotel. So do you need me to come pick him up?" And she's like, "I can take you back to the hotel. I'm a big girl." And I was like, "Okay." And I left it at that. Fast forward, you know, 2 or 3 years later, I see her commenting on Facebook that Lawrence Krauss sexually harassed her after isolating me from the group.
Wow.
And yeah. I'm like, okay, I don't know what happened when they were alone. I don't know if she was harassed. I don't know. I don't. But I know she wasn't isolated.
That's such bullshit.
Right. She's not isolated.
Here's the thing. So I see this post and all these people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're going through this, and what a shitbag and what a terrible person." And I'm like, I don't know if he did it. I don't know.
You were there though.
I was there for that part, and that's what I said.
Sure. So she's isolated, but you know, in a way, you isolated yourself, though. I mean, if I make the decision to leave all of my friends, I'm isolated, but I haven't been isolated by you. You did kick me out of the group.
So here's the thing. So that's all I said in the comment. I said, "Listen, I can't sit here and watch this nonsense go on." And I repeatedly said, "I don't know what happened when you're alone. So I can't speak to that. But I will say I was at the table when you volunteered to go on your own dancing with him, and then you volunteered to take him back to his hotel. So whatever happened, I don't know if he's guilty or innocent. I don't know. That's between you and him and whoever you can convince with evidence. But I know you weren't isolated, and that bothers me that you're lying about that part." And I said, "And that makes me concerned about what you could be lying about outside of my knowledge." I'm just putting that out there, right?
Tribal. I think that's what it is. That it's.
But here, let me finish this though. Let me finish this, because this is super important. I was then accused of defending a rapist, is what they said. Now first of all, never been convicted of rape, but now I'm accused of defending him as a rapist. I'm a rape apologist. My centrism and my judging slowly type mentality is enabling more people to be sexually harassed and hurt. And they were like, you should believe all victims, believe all victims. And I said, I always will once I know they're a victim. But is it believe everyone who ever has an accusation? I know there have been false accusations. So the rational thing to do is to withhold that judgment until you have better evidence. And I was completely demonized and told that I was defending a known sexual predator. And I'm just like, you can't speak up at all in a situation like this. And here's the thing. She ended up private messaging me saying, maybe it didn't look like he isolated her to me, but because of the subservient role women play in our society, she felt compelled to say yes because everyone else said no. And that's how she was isolated by manipulation.
Okay.
And that's when my brain just shuts off.
Right. It suggests that women are weaker. And it also suggests that you have some obligation to say, no, when she says, I'm a big girl, and you're like, oh, no, you're not. Why don't I escort you? God, like, to
That's
me, this
patronizing.
That is the patriarchy to me. Right. I mean, guess what? If we want to cut down on, say, like rape in college, we can just make sure that men and women never interact with each other unless they're like in the same family. That would be the hardcore Islamic way to do it. And it's funny because you should see what the hardcore Islamic fundies talk about on the Me Too. They're like, this doesn't happen because guess what? Like, we don't allow unsupervised conduct between people.
It's not reported. It happens.
Well, but I'm saying, right, I'm sure. But what they're saying is, see, look, this is this ultra conservative way of trying to at least reduce it.
But here's the thing.
At some point, our liberalism will lead to when you give people more freedom, that you're going to have the freedom to injure yourself. And it's unfortunate because sometimes you don't want to injure yourself and you get caught up in situations. That's life. We have to learn, and it sucks.
Well, I've seen false accusations. There's been false accusations about me as well. Like people they just get angry and they just go, oh, and by the way, David, this, and I'm just like, there's accusations of me being a white supremacist. Sure. Like activists on the left have tweeted at my network, Podcast One, and told them that I'm a closeted white supremacist and they should take my show down. They have incessantly tweeted at my sponsors trying to get them to cancel from supporting my show, claiming that I have some sort of ties with a white supremacist group. Every bit of it is bullshit. People will lie on you, right? That doesn't mean Lawrence Krauss has acted appropriately. He very well may have been inappropriate, but we have to be able to separate and say, don't lie about this if you want us to believe you about that. And if she was harmed by him, that breaks my heart. No one should have to go through that.
Yeah.
Lying about something when I was there and I saw that you didn't. By the way, she never corrected that statement publicly and said anything that, well, he didn't isolate me. I felt compelled to go. She never said that publicly. That was only private to me. Everything else was publicly saying he isolated me. And I defended him a little bit because I just didn't like her lie. But I repeatedly said, I don't know if he did anything else. He very well could be guilty of other stuff. That's not my story. I don't know. But still, even though I said that, I was labeled a rape apologist. I was labeled a sexual predator for defending a sexual predator. I mean, there's no winning with these folks. When they want to demonize you, they'll do whatever they can.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I'm convinced that we're working with some tribalism here. I'm not going to. I've already rejected this other point, so I'm looking for evidence that supports my position. So again, this isn't science. I mean, I could be a creationist to try to poke holes in evolution, and I'm going to find the things that evolution has not explained, and I'm going to say see. But like what I'm examining is I have my conclusion drawn. I'm looking for the evidence, and I think
so. You know, I have to mention this. Lawrence Krauss wrote a foreword for one of our children's books, and after he was, removed from his positions and posts and resigned and stepped down from all these different things, we decided that it was best that if that book goes into a second printing, we are going to remove his foreword from the book. Because regardless of what happened, whether it was, sexual assault or whatever, it's not something, or even just harassment or just inappropriate behavior, whatever it may have been, or basically what Christina Rad said. that's not something we want associated with a children's book. So the distributors put a lot of pressure on me to say, look, we don't want to really distribute the book if he's in it. There are 3,000 copies out there with him on it. If it goes to reprint and we sell out of those 3,000, we're going to insert a different forward into that book. And so I've distanced myself as far as that goes from the business perspective. I hope the same thing for him. I hope his victims, if he has them, are able to recover and heal. I hope he's able to heal as well and not make anyone feel uncomfortable and understand that his actions has been unacceptable. But even me doing that, even me pulling his forward, even me distancing myself from that situation, all they do is focus on that one thing that happened a year ago or two where I caught that one person in that one lie, and then I was called a rape apologist. It's like facts don't matter.
And that's going farther than maybe I would. Yeah, because I'm not sure if I wholly agree with, having to pull the forward or not. And we don't have to get into that. But I mean, yeah, so it does.
Well, I don't run anything involved with my company. I don't run it as a dictatorship.
Yeah, no, it's just good. And just to tie a bow on this, I think Christina Rad then made a comment on our last podcast where we did talk about Lawrence Krauss that I thought was really insightful. And she said that she had been contacted personally by him. And she felt like, the apology that he'd put out didn't go far enough. But then she said, then this was Christina. Christina goes, I surmise that he can't actually make a complete apology like he would like to, because due to the Title IX rules, that would be an admission of guilt, at least under the Arizona state's policies. And I guess wow, to me that shows that there's at least something wrong with this. That again, if we're talking things about like sexual assault, sexual allegations, there should be clear and convincing evidence. I don't think it needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt, but clear and convincing, but not the preponderance where that just 1% of information, like, oh yeah, he's did an apology. Yeah, that's 51-49. You're out. No, it needs to, like, when you're talking about ending someone's career, it needs to be bigger than that. And what's the punishment? Again, I'm just not, I'm not going to sit there and opine, and I'm going to judge slowly.
As people talk online and they vilify folks, David, even yourself, you're going to be present in person in Milwaukee in September. So those that, are hating online can come and talk to you as a human being.
Love that.
At Mythcon V in person.
They can agree or they can totally disagree.
You're not just a beautiful face on a screen. You're going to be a beautiful face in person, I assume.
I am now a bromance.
I am much taller in person. People are often shocked at how tall I actually am.
Yeah,
I'm not going to like you, David.
So am I going to get the Roadhouse?
Specifically,
I thought he'd be bigger.
When I found out that Justin Timberlake was 6'2" or whatever he is, which most people don't understand how tall that motherfucker is, I stopped liking him immediately.
Oh, I was being completely facetious. I'm 5'7".
Right, that's what I mean. Like, right, that's where the Roadhouse thing was going to come in.
No, but
I thought you'd be bigger.
You're on.
Funny line.
You're moderating 3 panels, right? No,
I'm moderating.
Sorry, you're moderating 2. I'm one of the organizers. I don't know these things. And you're on 1. So you've got how the political climate has divided the atheist community.
Right? And that's the panel you're on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
On it, not moderating it.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense for you to talk on that one. And then you're moderating our social commentary outlets displacing mainstream media. And then the impact of intersectionality. So anything, I mean, obviously we talked to you ahead of time when we planned you for these. What are your thoughts about the event? How excited are you about visiting the great Midwest, the best place in the nation?
Well, I'm wondering what the turnout is going to be and who's going to come. For me, it's a coin flip. Are you going to have a lot of supporters or a bunch of haters going to buy a bunch of tickets to boo and hiss? That's what I'm wondering about. I'm really curious as to who's going to show up to the event and participate.
From social media interaction, we've had a lot of people being supportive. Oh, I like a lot of the speakers. I want to attend. I want to hear the viewpoints. We haven't had a lot of, fuck you guys, I'm going to be there just to take a dump in the lobby. Like, that hasn't we haven't really.
If that happens, I hope someone gets that on video. That would be amazing.
I mean, just saying that it is interesting in that the dichotomy of opinions that we've seen online. We're excited. I think it's for the most part going to be something that's supportive. But we would love to have people who are, of a different viewpoint, because the entire conference is about differing viewpoints. So I think you're going to have a great time regardless. Again, I don't know. Have you been to Milwaukee before?
I'll take a crack at that real quick though. Like, and heck, to me, the real answer is I don't know who's going to show up, but my guess is that those that show up are interested in dialogue. I really do think that. Now, and I think most people will be very, very polite. Will you get a few people that are interested in dialogue that may be a little tribal? Yeah. But I think that I think it's up to everybody there. And like, whether you're kind of tribal or not, like to try to reduce that. Say, okay,
like, and talk about, I mean, last year, we had an amazing, difference of opinion last year. We had people who were supporters of, say, a Thomas Smith, for example, and we had, frankly, a lot of people that showed up that, were supporters of the other speakers. So it was all about differing opinion, and I think we're going to have the exact same thing.
We could tell, you could really tell the diversity in the audience by our surveys. Right. So we put out these surveys and, it was like, which speaker did you like the best? And when they gave Sargon a 10 and Thomas Smith a 1, okay, or the reverse, Thomas Smith a 10 and Sargon a 1, right? You get an idea that, like, okay,
but
that's
most
diverse.
People said that it was fun regardless. And all of the, there were people that said, oh, people felt unsafe at the who? We talked to literally everyone in the audience. I'm not even exaggerating. We literally stopped people. Hey, how are you doing? How are you liking this? Whatever. Didn't hear a single piece of, I felt outraged or whatever it was. It was so inclusive. And even the tweet portion that, people in the audience were cheering or whatever it is. We talked to people afterwards to get their perspectives. No one was shocked and, lost their minds.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were some people that were saying, the Azra and Omani Faisal debate was a better one than the Thomas Smith debate. Like, there was others that said the reverse. Now, and again, there's personal style. One was kind of a WWE, kind of crossfire, bang it out, okay. And some people like that style, right? But that's not everyone's style. The very civil discussion between,
David, that's going to be your panel, WWE style.
Well, between like Azra and Faisal, that was great, and just about everyone liked that too. But like, there were some that are like, no, I like when people bang their head. So it, that wasn't what we were shooting for, but like, that's what happened. So, okay, fine. Like, when that's what happened when both speakers need to be civil. When one speaker opens up with a haymaker, things get off the rails. So we have moderators, of which you're one, in an attempt to not let this happen. And last year we didn't have a moderator. There was a bunch of people in the comments that said, you really need a moderator. Guess what? We took that to heart.
No, we're excited about these topics, and hopefully you are too, David. I mean, I think I asked before, but is this your first time coming to our beautiful city?
Yes, it's the first time my beautiful face will be in your beautiful city.
Well, we're gonna love to have you. We'll obviously show you a really good time, and for those that are coming, obviously you get to see David. Among a bunch of others, we keep adding people to the special guest list. I frankly don't think we can afford this, but no one listens to me. So I think we're gonna have an amazing time, and we can't wait to see you here, David, in person, right, and discussing all of the topics we've talked about today,
socio-cultural politics, or religion. If you want to come and argue religion with David Smalley at Mythcon, bring it. That is absolutely on par. So is socio-cultural politics. Bring it.
We absolutely can afford it, Dima.
I don't believe you, Sean.
So I will tell you this. I love to throw curveballs right near the end of shows. Those pictures that are hanging up behind you guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For about 7 years in my home in Garland, Texas, when I lived there, I had the colored versions of that exact painting in my living room.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen them anywhere else except right here whenever you guys went live.
So your point in saying that was the black and whites are so much better, right?
No, his point is we have amazing, impeccable taste.
Okay.
That's what the point is.
All right.
We will take that compliment, David, and we're excited to see you,
We
sir.
took it pompously.
I want to tell you, I intentionally offset because a lot of people are just listening to the audio of this, right? They're not watching the video.
Which is kind of being weird right now. It's kind of like vibrating. I don't know why.
Yeah,
it just started to happen.
We can hear it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the man in the picture, in one picture, is leaning towards nothing, and then the woman is at the same bar in a different picture. I intentionally at my house I offset them at one time because I didn't want them to be crooked. So I put the one on the left up higher, which was the man's picture. And people came into my house and would say, "Oh, you have the man above the woman? Really? The man's looking down on the woman?"
He's creeping her out. Yeah, of course.
Listen, so I intentionally shifted them. And the very next person that came over was like, "Oh, is the guy trying to look up her dress or something? You freak." I'm like, you know what? This is such a great example of how I just can't win. It doesn't matter what happens.
Oh, that is absolutely
really
perfect. David, we had an amazing time with you. Thank you so much for devoting so much of your day to us.
Yeah.
Beautiful conversation, and we are going to love to continue it. So we will see you soon, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, David.